Today, we're taking a virtual road trip.
Oh, a road trip. Sounds fun.
It is. We're exploring Melbourne's eastern suburbs, from Box Hill South all the way to Clyde.
So we'll be covering a lot of ground then.
We will, but we're going beyond just the sights. It's about uncovering those unique things.
The history, the vibe, the hidden gems.
Exactly. Think of it like we're getting a real feel for these places, their character, how they've changed over time.
Like a local's perspective. I like it.
Perfect if you're planning a visit, right?
Yeah.
Or even thinking about moving. But even if not, it's just fun to explore.
Expand our horizons a bit.
Right. Okay, let's get started. Our first stop, Box Hill South.
Box Hill South, okay.
And instead of, the usual tourist attractions, we're beginning our journey at the Aldi.
That's an interesting starting point.
It is, isn't it? But it makes sense when you consider how Box Hill South has evolved.
Okay, I'm listening.
This area, it used to be all farmland.
Really? Wow.
You can still see that agricultural past.
Ah, I see it. Like in the wide streets, those big gardens many homes have.
Exactly. But Melbourne grew, obviously, and as it did, so did the need for practical things.
Makes sense. Things that serve the community.
Right, like our Aldi. It's all about convenience and affordability.
So it's a nod to both the history and the modern needs of the suburb.
I think so, yeah. But it's not just practicality here. We've also got Surrey Park. Beautiful park.
Oh yeah, Surrey Park. With all those lovely Edwardian and Californian bungalow houses around it.
You know your architecture.
Well, I try. And Surrey Park itself has quite a history. Did you know it was a military camp during World War II? No, I didn't, really. It's amazing to think about how that space has been used differently over time.
Right. And then, of course, there's the Gardeners Creek Trail.
Oh, yes, the trail. A perfect example of how Melbourne incorporates nature into the city.
Those green spaces are essential. Absolutely, especially as the city continues to grow.
So we've strolled through Surrey Park, gotten our groceries at Aldi. Now we're heading down Station Street.
Station Street. The main artery of Box Hill South, it seems.
It does. Where does that lead us?
Well, Station Street takes us to Burwood.
Burwood, okay.
And here, the story of Melbourne's suburbs takes a bit of a turn. You see, Burwood is practically synonymous with Deakin University.
Ah, Deakin, a huge university. It must have a big impact on the suburb.
It really does. It brings a different energy, Students from all over the world, a real vibrancy, multiculturalism.
Which you might not find in some of the older suburbs.
Perhaps not to the same extent. But Burwood's story goes beyond just the university.
Oh, tell me more.
It's also significant in terms of Melbourne's transportation history.
I'm intrigued.
Back in the early 1900s, extending the tram line to Burwood was a big deal.
It must have opened up the area significantly.
It did. It played a huge role in its growth. And guess what?
What?
You can still ride that historic number 75 tram today. The same route it took back then, connecting Burwood to the city.
Wow, a tangible connection to the past. That's amazing. Speaking of the past, our notes mention Wattle Park.
Wattle Park. Not just a green space, that's for sure.
Yeah, what, 55 hectares?
55, yep. A real community hub.
Yeah.
Reflects Burwood's dedication to recreation and heritage,
What way?
Well, walking trails, picnic spots, beautifully preserved heritage tram shelters.
I love those old tram shelters.
They even host open-air concerts in the summer.
Really? That's fantastic.
It is. A true blend of history, nature, and community all in one place.
I love those kinds of places. They offer something for everyone. So we've explored the lively Burwood, and now we're continuing our drive. Down Huntingdale Road we go.
Towards Ashwood?
Ashwood, yep. And it has a totally different feel, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Ashwood is classic post-war Melbourne.
With those charming brick veneer homes.
Exactly. Quiet, leafy streets, strong sense of community.
More laid back compared to Burwood.
Much more, yeah.
What really stands out to you about Ashwood?
It's how Ashwood has managed to change while still keeping its original character.
I see that. New developments blending in with the older ones.
Like Electro Reserve. It's a hub for sports and family fun. Shows how Ashwood prioritizes community spaces.
And those local shops and businesses give it a distinct personality.
Definitely.
So we've seen the history, the community vibes of Ashwood, and now our virtual drive takes us uphill.
Mount Waverly.
Mount Waverly, yes. Even the name suggests some great views.
And it doesn't disappoint. Mount Waverly is known for its rolling hills. From some spots, you get amazing views of the city skyline.
It sounds so picturesque.
It is. More spacious, too, compared to some of the other suburbs we've seen.
Larger lots and gardens, I imagine.
Exactly. What are some must-see spots in Mount Waverly, you ask?
I am asking.
Well, Valley Reserve, for one, beautiful natural parkland, perfect for escaping the city noise.
Sounds peaceful.
And for a bit of local life, there's the Mount Waverly Village Shopping Center, a real hub for the community.
Love those local shopping centers.
But what sets Mount Waverly apart are its schools,
Oh, right. I've heard about their schools.
especially Mount Waverly Secondary College.
So, a family-friendly suburb with those stunning views.
You got it.
And speaking of views, as we climb Mount Waverly, the landscape changes, right?
It does.
We get a great view of the M3 freeway from here, snaking its way through the suburbs.
The M3, also known as the Monash, it's more than just a road, you know.
I get that feeling.
It's vital for Melbourne. A symbol of how the city has expanded. A fascinating example of how infrastructure impacts development.
It feels like we're moving from those cozy suburban streets to a much grander scale.
We are.
What are some key things we should know about the M3 as we begin this part of our journey?
Well, one thing might surprise you. A lot of effort went into minimizing the freeway's impact on nearby suburbs.
In what way?
Noise, visual impact, landscaping, noise barriers. They even considered the elevation of the road, all to lessen disruption.
It's a good reminder that even huge infrastructure projects need to respect the existing environment.
Absolutely, especially as Melbourne continues to grow.
So as we drive along the M3, what should we be watching for? How does the landscape change?
You'll see a shift from the mostly residential areas we've seen so far to more industrial and commercial zones.
Ah, interesting.
Mulgrave, for example, large industrial presence. Dandenong North, known for its commercial centers.
So the M3 connects all these different facets of Melbourne's economy.
It does.
But amidst all this development, are there any green spaces left?
Oh, for sure. The Dandenong Valley Parklands, for example. They run along the freeway, a vital green buffer.
It's great they've preserved those green spaces. So important for a city.
Absolutely.
And as we approach Dandenong, the traffic seems to get heavier.
It does. Dandenong is a major hub.
So the design of the M3 reflects that.
It has to. In Dandenong, the M3 is all about efficiency. Multiple lanes, carefully planned interchanges, even those intelligent transport systems.
Using digital signs and sensors to manage the flow?
Exactly. A real testament to how they keep Melbourne moving.
Yeah.
And as we leave Dandenong, things start to soften a bit.
Soften.
Yeah, like we're transitioning from the industrial, the commercial, to a more, I don't know, relaxed feel.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Like a new chapter in our road trip.
Right. And speaking of new chapters, our notes mention the Cranbourne-Berwick Junction. It's a key point on this leg.
What makes it so important?
Well, it's a crossroads, you know, both literally and symbolically, I guess.
Okay.
It's where the established suburbs, with all their history, give way to newer developments.
Ah, representing Melbourne's growth.
Exactly. And from this junction, we turn onto Clyde Road. As we're heading just past that Cranbourne Berwick Junction in Melbourne.
Right on the outskirts, yeah.
And what's so interesting is how quickly it's all changed, you know, from farmland to
Exactly. Total transformation.
in just a decade. It's incredible. So how do you even begin to balance that kind of growth with...
Yeah, how do you keep what was special about the area?
Exactly. And it seems like Clyde North's really trying to do just that.
They are. It's pretty impressive.
Like with all those master planned communities popping up everywhere.
Everywhere you look, yeah. And drawing in a really diverse mix of people, I'd say.
Absolutely.
It's not just young families, although...
You see a lot of them for sure.
You do, especially with those new estates with all the parks and playgrounds. But there's also professionals wanting a bit more space than the city.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And you even get retirees looking for that community feel.
A real mix.
It is.
It's like each development's targeting a specific
Niche, yeah, almost like...
It's fascinating. And they're not just building houses either. The amenities are
they've gone all out.
pretty impressive.
Like you've got Clyde Grammar and Hillcrest Christian College.
Oh, great schools.
Yeah, top notch, which is a huge draw for families, obviously.
Of course.
And then there's the Clyde North Medical Center. Essential, really, with the population booming like it is.
Absolutely. It's not just the essentials, though, is it? They're really creating this
Self-contained, yeah.
whole ecosystem.
Ecosystem, exactly. Shops, cafes, you name it.
You barely need to leave. But is that always a good thing?
That's the debate, isn't it, with these master planned communities?
It is.
On one hand, it's so convenient, right? Everything's right there, and it fosters a strong sense of community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then you risk losing that connection to the wider Melbourne area, you know?
Becoming a little isolated.
It's a tightrope walk, finding that balance.
It is. Speaking of connection, though, Clyde North is fantastic when it comes to recreation and open space.
Oh, they've nailed that.
Casey Fields, massive.
Yeah.
For every sport you can think of.
Huge complex, yeah. And then you've got Clyde Creek Reserve
So peaceful.
for a bit of tranquility, exactly.
Such important spaces for building those community ties, right?
Absolutely. There's social hubs, organized sports, or even just a dog walk.
Casual.
Yeah, it helps people feel like they belong, especially with so many new residents.
Right. Because it's not just about community within Clyde North itself, but also its connection to greater Melbourne.
Exactly.
Easy access to the CBD M3 freeway. That's got to be a big plus for a lot of people.
Oh, huge. Connectivity is key.
It is.
People want the best of both worlds. The quiet life.
But with the city close by?
Exactly. Work, leisure, whatever you need. Clyde Road's vital too, linking it to Berwick, Cranbourne.
So well connected. But with all these modern amenities, all this connectivity, what about the
heart of it all, yeah.
Yeah, the soul of Clyde North? How are they preserving that rural heritage amidst all this development?
Well, there's still some farmland around, and they're really making an effort to hold on to that past.
Good.
You see it in the markets, the local produce, crafts, and the events celebrating the area's history.
Keeping that connection alive.
Blending the old with the new.
That's so important, right? It's not just wiping the slate clean and starting over.
Exactly. You have to acknowledge the past, integrate it into what's being built now.
Do you think they're succeeding with that?
I think so, yeah. There's a real charm to Clyde North, You don't get that with every new development.
You don't.
It's got a story. It's not just houses and shops.
It got a soul.
It does.
So what does all this mean for our listeners? Clyde North's clearly a fantastic example of planned growth.
Textbook almost.
Modern living with a nod to its rural past. Can this model be replicated elsewhere? What lessons can other growing communities learn from this approach? What do you think?
I think that's a great question to ponder. There's a lot to unpack there. But I think what Clyde North shows us is that growth doesn't have to mean losing what makes a place special. It's about finding ways to blend the old with the new, to create a community that feels both modern and connected to its roots. It's not easy, but Clyde North is proving that it can be done. And I think that's a really inspiring message.
It really is.
And speaking of connection, our final stop is Clyde itself, the culmination of our Eastern Suburbs tour. What makes Clyde stand out?
Clyde represents a newer chapter in Melbourne's suburbs. It's being developed with a focus on modern living, but also on sustainable design and a strong connection to nature.
Sounds like they're learning from past developments, trying to do things better.
I think so.
What are some of the things that make Clyde unique in that sense?
Well, for one, the green spaces, parks. They're not just an afterthought here. They're integral to the design.
Okay, that's good.
And energy-efficient homes, water conservation, sustainable building practices. It's about being environmentally responsible.
That's essential these days.
And of course, they're putting a lot of effort into those community hubs, recognizing how important that is.
So it's about finding a balance. Modern amenities, but in a way that's in harmony with the surroundings. Quite different from those early suburbs, I imagine.
Well, yeah. Back then, urban planning wasn't as focused on sustainability or community building.
Right.
Clyde reflects how our thinking has changed. We understand better now the importance of green spaces, sustainable practices, community, especially as cities keep growing.
And as they face new challenges like climate change and social isolation, it's all connected.
Yes.
It's a reminder that how we design our cities has a huge impact on people's lives. So as we finish our road trip, what are the key takeaways? What do you hope our listeners are thinking about?
Well, I hope they see the diversity in Melbourne's suburbs. We've seen history, student life, a relaxed pace, cutting-edge urban design. It's all there.
And yet they all make up this amazing city.
Exactly. It shows that even within one city, there are so many stories, so many different ways of life.
It makes you realize there's always something new to discover, even in places you think you know well.
That's the beauty of exploration.
As we wrap up our little road trip, it's amazing how much we've seen. From Box Hill South, with its history and practicality, to Clyde, with those new urban planning ideas.
It shows you how dynamic Melbourne suburbs really are. Each one's so different, shaped by its past, its present, even its dreams for the future.
And it's not just about each suburb on its own, is it? It's how they all connect, like pieces of a puzzle. We saw that with the M3, how it went from residential areas to industrial and commercial zones.
Yeah, the M3, it really represents Melbourne's growth and its challenges,
Mm-hmm.
connecting those different parts of the city, but also showing us how we need to plan carefully.
The environment for the people living there.
Exactly. I think that's one of the big things we've learned today. It's not enough to just appreciate each suburb. We need to understand how they fit into the bigger story of Melbourne.
How they contribute to the whole.
Right. And what's interesting is how our road trip reflects the journeys people make in their own lives.
Mm.
You know, moving from suburb to suburb, looking for different things.
Different lifestyles, maybe, or opportunities, or it's a sense of community.
Yeah, all of that. It reminds you that a city is more than just buildings and roads. It's about the people who live there, their stories.
And those stories keep changing with history, economics, social trends. It's all intertwined.
Thinking bigger, it makes you wonder about the future of Melbourne's suburbs, how they'll keep evolving. Will they stay unique, or will they all start to look the same as the city grows?
Big questions for urban planners, for residents.
Definitely. It makes you realize the choices we make today about how we design and live in these suburbs, they'll have a big impact down the road.
On the next generation, even. So maybe our deep dive today has gotten our listeners thinking about their own surroundings.
Maybe they'll notice something they haven't seen before, or start to appreciate the history behind their own neighborhood.
That's the fun part, right? Exploring, discovering. It can happen anywhere. All you need is a bit of curiosity, a willingness to look deeper.
Exactly. So, as we finish our journey through Melbourne's eastern suburbs, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions. And who knows what you might find.
The world is full of fascinating stories waiting to be discovered. Maybe you'll be the one to tell them.
If you crave adventure but love comfort, then Wander Wheel is your perfect escape. Hey there, travel enthusiasts! Welcome to Wander Wheel, where every solo road trip is a new story waiting to be told. We're all about the thrill of exploration, the joy of the open road, and the peace of finding hidden gems off the beaten path. Join our journey as we drive across breathtaking landscapes, discover tranquil spots for relaxation, and share tips to make your travels smoother and more enjoyable. Whether you're a seasoned solo traveler or just starting your adventure, Wander Wheel is here to inspire and guide you. So, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. Let's turn every ride into a memorable adventure together. Thank you for watching and welcome to the Wander Wheel family. Keep wandering, keep discovering, and remember, the best views are just a drive away. Cheers!